Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this day in history. Today is April 16th, 2024, which means, well, first of all, there's a birthday shout out to my cousin Bryson. Um, I'm drawing a blank how old he is. Doesn't matter. At any rate, happy birthday to my cousin Bryson. So let us get into it. Things that happened on this day, April 16th. Um, let's go. The very first one we have on the list here is in 1912. On this day, Harriet Quimby became the first woman to fly an airplane, as in she piloted an airplane, across the English Channel. 1917, Vladimir Lenin, he had ended his 17-year exile. He returned to Russia to basically head up the provisional government, which would have eventually been the predecessor to the communist regime that they had for 80 years and something like that. Um, so, history note on Russian history there, they had a czar, and the czar is like an emperor. Tsar Nicholas II, he was deposed, and then he and his family were assassinated. And the Bolsheviks, that was during the Bolshevik Revolution, and they took over. The Bolsheviks took over, and then they established a new government not long after that with Vladimir Lenin as their leader. Um, and then, of course, his successor was Stalin. And, if you know anything about history, you know that Stalin was not a nice guy. But he was really what the Russian people needed during World War II. He was tough, and he didn't take any crap off anybody. So Lenin was his predecessor. Both are actually their bodies were encased in like you can go to Moscow or Leningrad, I think is where Lenin is. I think Stalin's in Moscow. You can actually see their bodies. They actually had them entombed in such a way that there's no decay because they've like sucked all the vacuum, all the air or whatever out of that. So it's pretty cool what they did. But you can see their bodies laying in rest over there. So that was 1917. 1921 is we're gonna start some birthdays here. Um, Old time actor, author, director Peter Ustinov. If you're if you grew up in the '80s like I did, um, you might remember him in some of his work. At any rate, he was born in 1921. 1927, Pope Benedict XVI was born. 1947, basketball great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was born. And again, if you grew up in my time, you saw the tail end of his career. He was a tall guy. Um, he's also in one of Bruce Lee's movies. Apparently, he was one of Bruce Lee's students. So here in this movie, you have this moderately sized Asian guy going up against this tall, skinny black guy, and they're like they're throwing punches and kicks, and it's kind of comical to me anyway. 1952, Bill Belichick. He was NFL coach, football coach. Um, he's got a lot of um, championship wins under his belt, so he was pretty good coach. Um, in 2003, at the age of 40, Michael Jordan would play his very last basketball game. So again, he was my generation. He was a basketball great. Um, Now, in this generation, LeBron James would like to think that he's like the greatest basketball player of all time, but I still hold to the belief that I don't think he could have held a candle to Jordan in his prime. There were a lot of great basketball players when I was growing up. Magic Johnson was a great one. Larry Bird was another great one. Clyde Drexler didn't get a lot of accolades that he should have, and I think he was, when you look at his stats, he was every bit as good as Jordan. It's just that he just wasn't as flamboyant on the court. And I mean, there's a reason why they called him Clyde the Glide. I mean, he could do almost all that same stuff that Jordan did, when it come to the Air Jordans and all that. So I still maintain that he was one of the greats. Not just because I'm from Oregon and he played for Portland until he moved and went to Houston, where he was originally from. So, on this day, 1962, Walter Cronkite became a news anchor for CBS. He would later become known as the most trusted man in news. He had a reputation for being the most trustworthy newsman in the country. He was also, this is my interjection here, I think he was chiefly responsible for America's decline in support for the Vietnam efforts. At one point during a live cast, he had said that this war was unwinnable, and I don't think he realized just how much weight those words carried. Again, he was the most trusted newsman in America, and so when you have the most trusted newsman in America saying this thing is unwinnable, then people tended to listen, and if they thought that he was speaking the truth, then their support for what was going on over there was certainly going to wane, and it did. And it didn't bode well for the American soldier that came back home from that stuff. My father was one of those that was spat on and called baby killer and all this and that, and all he was doing was, he was a medic, and he was just trying to keep him and his boys alive because they had a job to do, and it's not like any of them really wanted to be there. Nobody wanted to be there. But they answered their country's call. So it's really, the onus is on their country for sending them there, not for them. I mean, yeah, there were some really bad actors over there, but for the most part, they just wanted to do their time and come home. It was like prison for them, really. So, so I kind of rabbit trailed off that. 2003, Michael Jordan played his last game at the age of 40. I don't know why I went out of order there with Walter Cronkite, but 2007. There's a little bit of sad news here. 2007 was the largest mass shooting in the United States, and that was the Virginia Tech shooting, where there was 33 people killed that day, including the shooter. I remember that day. I was out and about. It was a day off. I remember I was shopping somewhere, and I was with a friend of mine, and we got the news about the shooting, and it was a sad situation, as all those shootings are. I'm not going to get into my personal politics about the Second Amendment or anything like that, because that's not what this is for. This is just simply this day in history. The last thing that, wow, I'm kind of a Debbie Downer today. Jeez. Last thing to report is on this day in 2014, South Korean ferry Sewol, it capsized and sank. 304 people died. Most of them were high schoolers, unfortunately. So, wow, I try to have something upbeat to end it with, but now I'm kind of a Debbie Downer. Sorry about that. But that's been this day in history for April 16th. Tune back in tomorrow when we will go through what happened on April 17th. Most notable will be my niece's birthday. So I'll be issuing another happy birthday there. So that's it. That's all I got. So yeah, have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye.